Hi, my name is Onyenso, and I'm the founder of ECHOFORM, a youth-led civic storytelling and creative engagement platform based here in Canada. My work is rooted in the belief that young people's lived experiences are not just their stories, but they hold civic weight and our civic knowledge. Through ECHOFORM, I create safe third spaces where youth can use storytelling, art, research, and public dialogue to explore the issues that are shaping their communities. And that ranges all the way from climate justice to civic participation. So, thank you so much for inviting me to the panel today. The question that was asked was, through ECHOFORM, you use storytelling to connect lived experiences with public dialogue and systems change. How can storytelling help shift perceptions of rural communities from places people live behind to places where innovation, resilience, and opportunity can flourish? And to answer that, I would just say that storytelling is very powerful because it helps change who gets to define what a place is. When it comes to rural communities, they're usually spoken through the lens of what they lack, which is like which could be fewer services, fewer jobs, institutions, the list goes on. And not to say that those challenges are not real, because they are, but they aren't the whole story. Rural communities are not just empty spaces that are waiting for innovation to arrive, right? So storytelling helps us see rural communities as places of knowledge, leadership, adaptation. Like they have their own stories that are worth sharing. And through ECHOFORM, one of the things I care about is treating lived experience as civic knowledge, like I said in my introduction. When young people, newcomers, tell their stories, they're not just sharing memories, they're helping us understand how the systems within their environments are already working, maybe how they're failing, and where solutions already exist. Storytelling also helps to shift public imagination. If young people only hear that success means leaving, then leaving seems to seem like the only pathway to success. But when we highlight stories of, resilience, rural innovation, climate leadership, and community care, we create new possibilities and new perspectives of looking at a rural community. We show that rural communities are not just places that are left behind, but they are places where we can, you know, build different types of futures. Thank you so much for having me.
You've worked across nonprofit, public, and grassroots sectors to strengthen community well-being. In your view, what does a thriving rural community look like for today's youth, and what investments are needed to ensure they can build meaningful lives without feeling compelled to move to urban centers?
Thank you, Obi. So I would say if I was supposed to use one sentence to describe it, a thriving rural community is one where for the youth, it feels like a choice that they are confidently making, not a sacrifice. So that can mean access to education, like it was Helen that mentioned that story, private sector investment as well. She had mentioned, Charlene had mentioned technology that aids and amplifies rather than displacing. It also includes like meaningful work, mentorship, like mental health supports, transportation as well. I lived in Cameroon and we only had one bus that ran like 3 times in a week. Spaces where they feel like they can belong. So safe third spaces. It also means a future for themselves locally that they can imagine, whether that be like in entrepreneurship or agriculture or trades. I think one of the biggest issues has to be that they feel like in order to grow, they have to leave. And I can even relate to that as like an immigrant. It felt like having to leave Nigeria to come here is where I would be able to actually make a life for myself. Rural development should be about creating conditions where young people can stay, return, and remain connected without feeling like they are giving up any sorts of opportunity. Because in all honesty, opportunity shouldn't even depend on your postal code. The investments that I would prioritize are leadership programs, affordable housing, transportation, healthcare, business like resources, whether that be mentorship or funding, and also just like I mentioned, the third spaces, so culturally safe community spaces as well. And I think beyond funding as well, we also need to invest in trust, and young people need to know that their ideas are being listened to and impacting their communities and seeing that change happen in real time as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Anrika. That was good. That was insightful. Thank you. Final question for Norika. Your work demonstrates the power of community-led solutions. As Canada works towards a more sustainable and equitable future, how can government, organizations, and local leaders better engage rural youth in shaping policies that advance climate resilience, economic opportunity, and shared prosperity?
Thanks, Obi. For I would say the shift that needs to happen is from just asking or doing like community consultations, to actually giving youth real influence in a way that isn't tokenist. So that could be like engaging youth early, not after decisions are already made, because too often young people are invited into conversations about them after the priorities have already been set. And if we want policies that actually advance climate resilience, rural youth need to be involved from the beginning. So whether that is in defining the problem, designing the solution, or would I say co-designing the solution, deciding where the resources go, because they are the ones that are in those communities living their day to day, and their voices matter the most. As well, they should make engagement in these types of opportunities accessible. And from all we've mentioned so far there, we've mentioned quite a few barriers like, resources, funding. And so some of those ways that making it accessible could look like is paying youth for their time, offering transportation or virtual options, using plain language and not overly technical jargon that nobody actually understands, creating culturally safe spaces, and then meeting youth where they already are. So young people, they go to like schools, community centers, online spaces, especially in this day and age, like that's just unfortunately how it is. Faith spaces, grassroots networks, the list goes on. And then finally, we need to expand on what counts as policy knowledge, because most of the time, policymakers are only looking at the quantitative data rather than the stories and the qualitative data. And quantitative data only captures so much. It doesn't capture the emotions or the experiences. And I'm going to wrap up very quickly, but I just wanted to say that even a poem, a story, or a lived experience testimony can reveal so many things that a traditional reports can't. Thank you.
Thanks, Enrica. That's really insightful. That's great.